trust you haven't forgotten the party tonight at Elsie's." "Oh, my God," I said. "I did forget. Do we have to go?" Anne shrugged. "She invited us a week ago. That was excuse time. It's too late now." Confusion. I bit into my ham on rye. "Brother man seems less than joyous," Phil said. "Elsie's shindig's no good?" "No good," I said. "Who is she?" "Our next-door neighbor," Anne told him. "Candy's her little girl." "And parties are her profession," I said. "She's the poor man's Elsa Maxwell." Anne smiled and shook her head. "Poor Elsie," she said. "If she only knew what awful things we say behind her back." "Dull, huh?" said Phil. "Why talk?" I said. "Go to the party with us and see for yourself." "I'll liven her up," said Phil. A little after 8:15, Richard fell asleep in his crib, and we went next door to Elsie's house. In most marriages, you think of a couple's home as theirs. Not so with that house. Ron may have made the payments on it, but the ownership was strictly Elsie's. You felt it. It was Ron who answered our knock. He was 24, a couple of years older than Elsie, a couple of inches taller. He was slightly built, sandy-haired, with a round, boyish face that seldom lost its impassive set, even when he smiled as he did then, the ends of his mouth curling up slightly. "Come in," he said in his quiet, polite voice. Frank and Elizabeth were already there, Elizabeth settled on the red sofa like a diffident patient in a dentist's waiting room, Frank's thin body slouched in one of the red armchairs. He brightened only a little when we came in, raising his bored gaze from the green rug, straightening up in the chair, then standing. I introduced Phil around. "Hi." I glanced over and saw Elsie peering around the corner of the kitchen doorway. She'd cut her dark hair still shorter and bobbed it still tighter, I noticed. When we'd moved into the neighborhood, she'd had long, drabby blonde hair. We all said hello to her, and she disappeared a moment, then came into the room with a tray of drinks in her hands. She was wearing a red, net-like dress which clung tightly to the curves of her plump body. When she bent over to put the tray down on the blonde-wood coffee table, the bosom of the dress slipped away from her tight black brassiere. I noticed Frank's pointed stare, then Elsie straightened up with a brassy, hostess-like smile and looked at Phil. Anne introduced them. "Hello," Elsie said. "I'm so glad you could come." She looked at us. "Well," she said, "name your poison." What happened that evening up to the point when it all began is not important. There were the usual peregrinations to the kitchen and the bathroom, the usual breaking up and regathering of small groups, the women, the men, Frank, Phil, and myself, Elizabeth and Anne, Elsie and Phil, Ron and me, and so on. The drifting knots of conversation that take place at any get-together. There was record music and a little sporadic attempt at dancing. There was Candy stumbling into the living room, blinking and numb with only half-broken sleep, being tucked back into her bed. There were the expected personality displays. Frank, cynical and bored. Elizabeth, quietly radiant in her pregnancy. Phil, amusing and quick. Ron, mute and affable. Anne, soft-spoken and casual. Elsie, bouncing and strainedly vivacious. One bit of conversation I remember. I was just about to go next door to check on Richard when Elsie said something about our getting a babysitter. "It doesn't matter when you just go next door like this," she said, "but you do have to get out once in a while." Once in a while, to Elsie, meant an average of 4 nights a week. "We'd like to," Anne said, "but we just haven't been able to find one." "Try ours," said Elsie. "She's a nice kid and real reliable." That was when I left and checked on Richard, and had one of my many nighttime adorations. That standing in semi-darkness over your child's crib and staring down at him. Nothing else. Just standing there and staring down at his little sleep-flushed face and feeling that almost overwhelming rush of absolute